Hey guys, how many harpazos are there in the Bible? And some of you are like, well, what's a harpazo? Well, that's a great question. But before I jump into that, I got to tell you some amazing news. And that is that the reason that Jesus willingly went to the cross was to take on the punishment we deserved. He shed his blood there for our sins. And if we put our faith in him, we can be forgiven. It's really that simple. And not just forgiven, but he begins to transform us by the work of his Holy Spirit who comes into our lives once we place our faith in him. So we will be able to have eternal life. That's the gospel. That is what's called the good news. You can take it or leave it. It's your choice. God gives us free will. But you want to be sure to count the cost before you go either way, actually. If you leave it, you will be eternally separated from God. It doesn't matter how good you are or how good you might think you are. God is holy, and he will not let you into his holiness if you are not also holy by his definition. You can't get holy on your own. It's not possible. It's only through the blood of his son, Jesus, that we are made holy. We have to place our confidence in him. We have to place our trust in him. We have to place our faith in Jesus, and that is accepting him. So if you reject Jesus, do you think, well, I'm gonna take my chances? Well, your chances then are exactly zero. I'm telling you the truth because I love you. If you choose to put your faith in Jesus, you want to count the cost as well, because Jesus said anyone who wants to be my disciple must carry his or her cross and follow me. And so to follow Jesus means to reject this world and all that it has to offer. But for all who accept Jesus, well, we have a harpazo just around the corner. What's a harpazo? Well, it's a Greek word found in the Bible, and it means to seize or to snatch away, to be caught up. And it's related in its etymology to the word harpoon. So, like in the last attempt by Captain Ahab to harpoon Moby Dick, his foot got caught. So what they would do is they would fasten one end of the harpoon to the boat, and then they would throw it out or shoot it out into the fish and or mammal. And his foot got caught in the harpoon while the boat was sinking. So he was tangled up in the harpoon, and the boat went down. And of course, you know the story. He's dead forever. So that's sort of being snatched up in a negative way. But in the scriptures, most of you know, harpazo is where we get the English word rapture from. It's been transliterated through, I think went into the Latin as rapturo, as I read some point. And then from the Latin to the English, of course, we get rapture. And so those of us who follow Jesus, we get to get harpooned and dragged not down into the sea, but up to heaven. And so we're gonna get hit with the harpoon. Well, not really, but you get the idea. We're going to be snatched up to heaven and meet Jesus there in the air. That's what the scriptures teach. And the scriptures indicate that it's going to be super quick, within the blink of an eye, twinkling of an eye, actually, not a blink. Twinkling is even a shorter time span. It is going to be so fast, which is crazy because when you think about it, Christians have been waiting for this for 2,000 years, and yet it's going to happen in the twinkling of an eye. It's going to be like waiting, been waiting forever, and boom, gone. It's cool. Can't wait. So that's what we as believers have to look forward to. I mean, just imagine you're I don't know, you're going about your day, right? And I can think of some pretty weird times of the day where I would not want to be snatched up to meet the Lord in the air because, you know, we're human. We have human things we have to do. But let's say you're going through your day and you're stopping at Starbucks on your way to work. There's a good example. And as you place your order in the drive-thru, and before you can say, oh yeah, extra hot, you're gone. You're snatched right out of the car. One split second, you're jonesing for your coffee, and the next split second, you're in the presence of the Lord Jesus. And you didn't get your coffee, but dude, you're in heaven. Come on. Coffee's not going to be in heaven, but everything that coffee represents to you, everything that coffee represents to you, all the good stuff, you know, I used to drink a lot of coffee and I loved it. it charges you up in the morning, got you going. I love the smell, the fragrance, the flavor. I didn't do all the too much of the frou-frou stuff. Really liked it. It brought me, it was a cup of joy for me because I don't have much of one. It was a cup of personality. And so everything that represents is on steroids in heaven. And so you won't need your cup of coffee when you get here. So this is the doctrine of harpazo in the Christian church. And it's crazy. It is one of the craziest doctrines in the church. And the crazy thing about it is that it's true. That's the craziest thing about this. It seems surreal, but it's true. It will happen. But if you have spent any time on YouTube or TikTok in the last few weeks, I mean, we got people, you guys, you've probably seen this. We got people, what they're saying is that they've had visions caught up into heaven, not in a rapture, but in a vision, or they've had dreams from God that not only is it going to happen and happen very soon, but they're saying that God told them September of 2025. Whoa. I watched this one video, guy by the name of Joshua. Maybe you've seen it or heard of it. I'm sure you have. If you've spent any time looking at end times on YouTube, you've heard of it. If you haven't, just Google Joshua Rapture. Man, it'll blow your mind. But yeah, I had a vision that God gave him the date, September 23rd, 2025. And I've seen at least 2 videos. I've seen a lot of videos of people getting confirmations. And I got to be honest, some of the confirmations I'm going, that's really weird. Like one guy was like, license plates. Like she said, Lord, if I see a 9 as the first number on a license plate, that'll be a confirmation that this is you. And, she saw the 9 and she's like, he's coming in September. I don't know. That seems. So let's look at it this way. You have 36 options on a license plate. So you got a 1 chance in 36 that you're going to see a 9. That's not really in the miracle realm for me. Maybe, and I think she claimed it was like 2 or 3 times in a row or something. Okay, that's kind of getting interesting because now you're up in the 1 and maybe if it's 40, it's 40 times 40 is one of the 1600 or 160, no, 1600, and then one in the 64,000 or something. I can see where that number could really start to get interesting, but still it's weird. Some of those confirmations have been weird, but I have seen, maybe you've seen this too. I don't know. You tell me what you guys think if you've seen these. I've seen 2 videos at least where parents of kids and the kids themselves have had dreams where God told them September, I'm coming in September. And one kid, he was 15, autistic, didn't talk much, didn't talk at all. He communicated through typing words out. And he had saw his mom's aborted daughter in heaven, which is really kind of crazy. But before she was a believer, she terminated a pregnancy and he saw a sister. And her mom's like, you saw who? And he gave the name and her mom was just blown away because that's the name she asked God to name that child when she became a believer. And he saw that girl in heaven, and that girl said, yeah, Jesus is coming in September. Another kid had a dream, and in his dream, this younger generation, his dream, God texted him, 9/23/25. What? And so these things are, I don't know. What do you think of that? It's crazy. Would God reveal a day when Jesus said no one knows the day or the hour? I don't know. But I think it's at least theologically possible that God would reveal the day. Because in the day of Jesus, no one did know the day or the hour. Jesus didn't know. The angels didn't know. Only the Father. But does that necessarily mean that God would not later tell Jesus before it's time for him to go, or tell his angels just before it happens, or even communicate it to those who are being raptured just before it happens? I think it's possible theologically. Because you guys maybe you've heard this, but you look at the story of Elijah and Elisha. Elijah is about to get caught up with the chariots of fire into heaven, and his servant Elisha is going with him, and he's like, I've got to go over here. Elijah says to him, but you stay here. And Elisha says, nope, not leaving you. And so they go to this new place, and then the prophets come out and they say to Elisha, hey, did you know the Lord's going to take your master today? Shh, don't tell anybody. This happens like 2 or 3 times where God has revealed the exact day when Elijah was going to be caught up. And it's a rapture. He's caught up with the chariots of fire. So it is a rapture, and God revealed it. And then there's that other passage in Amos where God says that he does not reveal anything. Let me reverse that. He does not do anything until he first reveals it to the prophets. He doesn't do anything until he first reveals it. I would say the rapture is pretty significant. I think it's something that, if that text is true, God's going to reveal it to his people. I think it's at least possible theologically. So that's where I landed. I know other people disagree, and that's fine. And if you feel free to disagree, and if you want to comment on it, that's great, because that helps me get clicks. And trust me, I need clicks. so we can have more than the 10 normal people that follow me on this channel, which is fine. I do this because the Lord told me, and nobody wants to listen. I'm okay with that. I'll continue to share the gospel. But anyway, for me personally, just want to let you guys know, I really am cautiously optimistic. Why? Because I'm ready to go. Don't get me wrong. I've got a lot to live for here. But when I consider all that I have to live for here, do you know what it is, really? It's two things. It's one, it's doing the work of the Father, because I do a lot of other things besides this video. But it's doing the work of the Father, and which I love to do. And number two, it's relationships with my family, my wife, my children, my grandchildren, my sibs, my friends. It's all the relationships. And since I hope and pray for all of those relationships, that all of us are in heaven, I'm ready to go, hoping and trusting that God's going to get them to receive him before it's time. You feel me? Because everything I have to live for is there in this life. Everything I have to live for in this life is there. I'm ready. So I'm optimistic, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Why are you cautiously optimistic, dude? Because I've been here before, and you guys have too, many times. I first became a Christian way back in 1978, 16 years old. I came across the book at that time, The Late Great Planet Earth, and I would show up at that time at any second. And I was excited about it, but a little honest with you, I wasn't ready then. So I was also dating my first girlfriend at that time. And so I was thinking about marriage and all the things that go with that. I'm like, man, I want to have an opportunity for that. Just kind of thinking like a young person would. And I remember attending a Bible study at the time in this, I forget the name of it, but it was this pie restaurant. This Christian couple owned it. They sold pies all day and coffee, and they made a go of it. It was kind of cool. Good pies too, by the way. But at night, they would allow groups to come in and do Bible studies because it wasn't open late at night after 8 o'clock. So we went down there at 8 o'clock for this Bible study, and they had this guy speaking. This guy came in and spoke. And at that night, what he said was that the Lord was going to return in 1981 for his church, and then the second coming would be in 1988. And I was like, oh, man, okay, I'm excited, but I want to get married at some point. But guess what? 81 came and went. No Jesus. No wife yet either. That would happen in 85. But then there came a book out a few years later, 1988, just before that, and it said 88 Reasons Why Jesus Will Return in 1988. And because it was written by a NASA engineer, I thought it's got to be true, right? This guy's calculated all these numbers. He knows what's going on. He knows what's what. So I got excited again. But then 88 came and went. So the writer goes, well, I'm going to double down. He goes, oh, I see what I did. I made a mistake. I miscalculated because there's no year 0 in the Gregorian calendar. So really, it's 89 reasons why Jesus is going to come in 89. Nope, didn't happen. You guys know this. And in the 90s, I bought all kinds of books. It was leading up to Y2K. There was a lot of hype at that time about the whole world was going to crash because the dates were wrong on the computer. Something I don't even know. But I was buying a lot of books then, and about the return of Christ. And I bought a book called The 90s Decade of the Apocalypse. And then there was another one, Saddam Hussein, the Antichrist. Well, none of those predictions came true either. Then Y2K hit. And I, made sure I had a bathtub full of not hot water, but a bathtub full of water. And I had about 20 boxes of cereal stored up because, if it was the zombie apocalypse coming, I wanted some water and I didn't want to run out of Cocoa Puffs. So that's what I did. But nothing really happened. It was nothing burger, right? Then in the 2000s, I didn't get too excited until kind of the end of the 2000s, the beginning of 2010s. And I met Mark Biltz, I think is his last name, Biltz. And some of you guys may have known him. He wrote that book on the blood moons. He was the guy that sort of discovered the correlation between blood moons and the feast days. It was really interesting. And I got excited again. there were these 4 blood moons that came in a row on feast days and intermixed with a couple of solar eclipses, but all of that came and went, and no Jesus, right? And so I was excited for a while, but then it faded away. But then, you guys, 2017, some of you remember this, the Revelation 12 sign was in the sky. It appeared in the sky on the Feast of Trumpets, and it was a phenomenal sign with impeccable timing, right? Surely this is the year 2017 in which the Lord will return. But 2017 wasn't. And COVID hit, and I got it 3 times, even getting stranded in Iraq on one of those occasions. That was a lot of fun. So when I say that I'm cautiously optimistic, I think you can appreciate why. I've been hearing about the return of the Lord since I became a believer since 1978, and I've been watching. And I want to be excited, I really do, but I don't want to be disappointed again, right? So if you're a follower of Jesus, and you're probably going to want to have a similar approach, I think. Jesus commands us to be ready, even if it comes in the 2nd or 3rd watch of the night. And I really think we're well into the 3rd watch of the night. By the way, I feel like sunup is just over the horizon. But here's where we have to be careful, because there's another harpazo out there. Well, what is that harpazo? I can't say the word, harpazo. Well, Jesus hinted at it when he warned his disciples about the guy who said to himself, my master's taking a long time returning. I think I'm going to go party. And he did. He went out and ate and drank with drunkards, and then he beat the people of God instead of helping them. I mean, this guy went really south. And so, yeah, we've got to be careful of that. And I've been waiting, like I said, since 1978. That's 47 years, according to my junior college math. And it would be super easy to get cynical and say, like the Apostle Peter wrote and warned us, some would say, that, where's this coming? Things are going like they've always been, right? And they mock and they scoff, and it would be easy to do that. And they'll get drunk, and go out and get drunk and drink some Irish whiskey or something, to go get caught up in the flesh. And so, but the reality is that this is the 2nd harpazo that we need to be careful of. Why should we be careful of? Because Jesus warned us to be careful of it. I want you to listen to these words. This is found in Luke's gospel. Jesus says this. He says, be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with dissipation, drunkenness, and the anxieties of life, and that day will close on you unexpectedly like a trap, for it will come upon all those who live on the face of the earth. Be always on the watch and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. By the way, it's a great answer for those Christians who long for the rapture, and others say to him, scoffers say to him, you guys are just escapists. You're just weak. We got to endure to the bitter end. And my answer to them is, exactly. I am an escapist. Jesus told me it would be a good idea to watch and pray so that I could escape. And because he told me to watch and pray so that I could escape, I want to escape, because it's going to be really ugly in that 7-year tribulation. Listen, we do not want to be here during that time, right? It's people who want to ramble it out during that, I think you're crazy. It's going to be the most horrific time on earth. I don't care how tough you are. I don't care if you are a Marine boot sergeant. You're not going to get through that. Nobody is. In fact, Jesus, if I didn't cut short those days, nobody would survive it. Not even nobody, but no flesh, he said. It's going to be very, very challenging. But notice what Jesus says in this passage. He says, be careful. Why? Because your hearts will be weighed down with dissipation, drunkenness, and the anxieties of life. When I first read that, I'm like, well, what's dissipation? Doesn't sound good, but I don't know what it is. So I looked it up in the English, and I looked it up in the Greek and the Strong's Concordance, and the word is krypale. It's the same word, according to Strong's, it's the same meaning as harpazo. Say that again. Dissipation in the Strong's is the same word as harpazo. It means to be seized with drunkenness. It's another harpazo. So listen then, you can be seized with drunkenness in the anxieties of life, or you can be seized in the actual harpazo, in the rapture, and be taken to heaven, but you can't be seized with both. You follow me? if you give up waiting, if you give up on Jesus, if you give up your faith and you go out and party, Jesus says, I'm going to assign you a place with the hypocrites. You will not be seized in the harpazo. Okay? Don't let that day, Jesus says, close unexpectedly on you like a trap. So friends, the time's incredibly short. You know this. It's possibly days away. It could happen today, I hope. It could happen in September, I hope. We don't know, but what we do know is that we are definitely in the season of the rapture. Signs are all there. It's coming. And so what we want to do then is to be careful. We want to be in prayer. Now is the time in our lives to not join the Wine of the Month Club. That's not the time. Now is the time in our lives to not get all obsessed with the NFL and your NFL team. I wouldn't even be on honestly, I would not even be on one of those, what do they call those NFL fantasy leagues? I wouldn't even do that. Now is not the time. I'm not even going to watch a game. I don't even watch it anymore because I don't want to be caught up in that anymore. That's what the world has to offer. I want Jesus. Now is the time to prepare for the return of Jesus, to be watchful, to be in prayer. It's time to forgive anyone and anyone you have aught against. It's time to forgive them and let them go. Now is the time to get your spiritual house in order, because if you don't, you might just get caught up in the wrong harpazo. Thanks for listening, you guys. Feel free to comment, like, and share if you want. Hope to see you again next week, unless we're taken away. If the Lord wills, I'll share a message with you then. God bless and bye.